Hey there, future web developers. In the last lesson, we learned how to create forms in HTML. Now that we have covered major parts of HTML, but have you ever wondered how to organize your page properly? That's where div and span come in. Today, we'll learn how to group elements and style them easily using classes and IDs before we climb into our CSS lessons. Before that, let's learn the difference between a block element and an inline element. A block level element takes up the full width of the page, pushing content to a new line. P, H1 to H6, LI, table all are block elements. On the other hand, an inline element only takes up necessary space and stays in the same line. Examples include anchor, input, and button tags. Notice the difference. The P and H1 tag is forcing the next element to start from a next line, just like pressing an enter when you type on Word. Whereas, anchor and buttons start one after another on the same line. Now you are good to understand what are div and span. So, let's move forward. Div is a block element. It is just like a box that helps organize your content. It doesn't change how things look but is super useful for layout and styling. Unlike div, span doesn't create a new line. It's great for applying styles to small pieces of text. Now, what are class and ID? To style div or span or any HTML element, we use class and ID attributes. A class can be used on multiple elements, while an ID is unique to one element. Means that a web page can have only one ID of the same name. In CSS or JavaScript, we represent a class with a period before class name. For example, a div with a class name city will be represented as .city in CSS. In CSS or JavaScript, we represent an ID with a hash before ID name. For example, a div with an ID name city will be represented as #city in CSS. Let's do some changes in our portfolio site. I have done some changes in my index.html code. I have added a heading at the top as H1, and below are my two sections for About Me and Skills. This is how it is looking like. Now what I want to do is to encapsulate my top heading and navigations inside a div with ID called header. You can give any ID of your choice, but giving meaningful names is a best practice of coding. After header, I want to define a main section. I will give it an ID of main section and not a class because I have only one main section in my page. Let's write the closing tag of this div at the end so that all About Me and Skills code is encapsulated inside the main section. Inside the main section, I am going to create two separate divs for both of my sections. So I will use a class instead of an ID for both of them. Oops, I forgot to write the equals sign between class and section. Let's correct it. I have created two separate sections inside my main section. Now after the main section, we should have a footer for our website. Let's create a footer with a div tag like this. Let's see it in action. As I told you before, adding div or spans will not bring any change visually. But if you want to show its impact, right-click on the browser and click Inspect. You can see all your code here in the Elements tab if you are using Google Chrome browser. It can be different in different browsers. You can hover each tag and see the selection on the browser. The body tag is selecting all body. When you hover only header div, it will highlight our heading and navigations. Likewise, you can see by selecting each div individually. You must be considering what is the advantage of doing this. Worry not, it will be very helpful when we do our styling. What if I say that you have no homework for today? Just practice and read about how div, span, class and ID work from the links in the description. We will implement all these concepts in our CSS lessons. Today, we have learned about block and inline elements, explain how div and span is used with the help of examples, give some classes and ID to our portfolio site. In the next lesson, we will be discussing semantic elements in HTML. Stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our exciting lessons.